What's going on, everybody? Today we're doing another video on the camper conversion that's happening inside of the H2. We've been working on it for weeks and weeks now, and we've made a lot of changes since that last video. I've seriously just been slacking on filming all the things that we've been doing. I've had a lot of stuff going on in my personal life. I spent a week at SEMA, which I'm definitely not complaining about. It was awesome to get back, but I've just been really lazy when it comes to filming. Now, in that last short video, it was just kind of an overview to kind of catch everybody up to speed about what the plan was and what we've been doing, but we've actually made quite a few changes since that video, and we've done a ridiculous amount of work. I've been working on this thing like 7 days a week, every single day for...
It's been 84 years.
For close to a month now. It seems like I just keep adding things and making things better. And I've really been enjoying the process, but I'm so ready to get this thing on the road and be out exploring. And so that means I just haven't been as proactive about filming everything. I've been way more focused on just getting things done instead of filming every single little detail in the things that we've been doing. But it's totally different than that last video. But since that last video, we've made a lot of changes. And so with this video, I'm gonna catch y'all up to speed with everything that we've done in the last few weeks. And we're also gonna start the finishing process of our passenger side. In that last video, you saw us making a little pull-out drawer for that side of the truck. And once that was all said and done, I wasn't exactly happy with it. It just eliminated so much space. And when we were done with that and we got it in the truck, I just wasn't very happy with it. So we scrapped that plan and we've made a cabinet instead. That's given us a lot more room, and it's really simplified that side of the truck. So in this video, I'm just gonna catch y'all up to speed about everything we've done in the last couple weeks. We're also gonna start finishing out the passenger side of the truck and then make plans for the next week or so about getting everything finished up. We're getting really close. I'm super excited to be this far along. So let's hop into it and we'll see what we've done up to this point. So in that last video, I showed you the fridge that we had here, showed you some of our frame and things that we mocked up, as well as a few of the other things that we did throughout the truck. As you can see, our frame is all finished and painted. Nobody's ever gonna see the frame, but I did wanna make sure it wasn't going to be susceptible to any rust, and honestly, I just wanna do things the right way, to the best of my abilities, and so I made sure all of this was painted and looks decent. You can see we've also carpeted the areas for our cubby holes. We're gonna have a cubby hole right here with a lid that pulls up, and we can get into that storage area there. We have our second one right here. All of this is dynamatted and carpeted, and that's turned out really well. Over here, you can see we have our wires ran for the power inverter. I have a 2000 watt Renogy power inverter. Mainly that's going to be used just for small electronic appliances. I'm not gonna have a lot of power needs when I'm off the grid, mainly just keeping my laptop charged and occasionally using an electric skillet when we're out of butane. And the switch for the power inverter is actually mounted up here on our console that has all of our switches for like the sunroof and things like that, which leads me into the headliner. If you notice in that last video, the headliner was just the stock original tan, and it's a really big undertaking to do a headliner in an H2. This thing is massive, and I wasn't really planning on doing it, but that original headliner was just nasty. There were stains and tears and things like that in it, and so I figured this project has already taken a lot longer than I wanted it to, and so let's just go ahead and go the extra mile and we'll modify the headliner a little bit. And so in addition to the black suede that we've done up there, we've also installed 6 of these little LED pod lights. Those are going to be ran to a switch panel that's going to be over here in the corner above our cabinet. We're going to be able to turn these on in individual rows, and so we'll have row 1, row 2, and row 3. That way, if we don't want all of them on all at once, we can just turn those on and off, you know, individually by rows. While I was up there, I also tucked all of the wires. We cleaned all the wires up. I also did dynamat along the edges. Along the edges all the way around, there's lots of these holes and things that just induce more noise. And so we've covered all of that with a really good dynamat, and it made a huge difference just covering those holes up. While all that was down, we also painted our console and our light fixtures to be just a satin black. I've left the door handles tan and a few of these other things tan. I think it accentuates the black pretty good. And then we also got rid of the old broken visors. They were really nasty, and it was going to be hard to color change those or to fix them up. And so what we've put in their place are just some riv nuts to help hold this up. And I also at one point want to put a camera mount or some sort of mount up here that runs either along the front of the windshield or two different things on either side. And so we've added these riv nuts to hold the headliner up in place, and it also gives us a strong point into the future to add on to this build. Maybe I want to put a shelf here, or maybe I want to put a camera mount, something like that. So that gives us a couple points that we can mount to in the future. So overall, I'm really happy with the headliner. It looks a little dingy right now just because it's, you know, directional like suede is. So I need to go through all of it and get it facing the same direction. But it looks so much better than that ugly, nasty tan that we had up there. Going back to the back of the truck, we have done a lot of stuff to this hatch. One of the other big projects on here that I just finished up, we totally redid its entire rear hatch panel. It's dusty and kind of nasty right now, so forgive me. But you can see we added a couple more of these pod lights, just like we've done on our headliner. And however, these are on their own self-contained harness with a little switch over here on the left-hand side. So I've done that's mainly for when I use our slide-out table. If it's at nighttime and I need some overhead lighting, we now have some nice overhead lights. And this entire system is contained just within the factory harness that's inside of here. So our harness for our lights and our switch harness is all contained within this section back here. We did have to make a custom Molex plug, quick disconnect plug, so that when we pull the rear hatch down, we don't have to cut any wires or anything. So there is a power and a ground plug that we built that plugs into the back of that switch. But as you can see,
it just works.
We have a nice switchable light right here, and this gives off plenty of light at nighttime. It's going to be really, really nice just to have this overhead lighting. And while we had all of that down, these are notorious for cracking and breaking, and I anticipate in the future that this is probably going to continue to crack and have some issues. And so while I did spend a decent amount of time finishing it all out, it's not even close to perfect. But while we had it down, we did reinforce the entire inside of this just with some thin wood and fiberglass, so this is a lot stronger now. These little exterior screws are helping hold that in place as well, just to give it some more rigidity. We built a little cover where the original door pull was to pull the door closed. The factory one had broken on me, so I built this little aluminum cover, put an eyelet in there. We also did some riv nut mounting points on the sides. There's no solid mounting points on the side panels, and so it's kind of a point of failure on these, and so we've added some riv nuts there. Also added a few down here. I just haven't put the fasteners in there quite yet. But this rear hatch is the first part of this entire build to be quote unquote totally finished. There's a few things I'd like to add maybe in the future, but I spent several days on it and I'm about fed up with working on it. So I kind of wrapped things up, got everything working, the lights work great, and it's going to be really, really nice at nighttime whenever I need some downward lighting onto our pull-out table. We also did a lot of wire tucking and wire deletion up in the headliner, down in the floorboard. We also dynamatted all of our floors and everything all down here. And I'm sure I'm missing a lot of things. I'll have to go through my Instagram story archive and check every single thing that I've done up to this point. I've been putting a lot of stuff up there as I've been going along, so I'll share some of that throughout this video. So if you see a bunch of low quality, crummy clips, that's where I pulled them from. Like I said, I'm sorry I've been slacking on getting some of this stuff filmed. But let's go ahead and jump into what I'm going to be working on for the next few days, and that's right behind me on the passenger side. It's our cabinet storage area. Now all this is real loosely mounted. It's just kind of sitting here right now, but I did put it back up there because it's been about 2 weeks since I've had it up there, and I needed to take a second look at everything so I could figure out exactly what I need to do today. So like I said, this is the cabinet that replaced that drawer that we originally built. That one in that last video, I was really happy with the design, but it just limited how much storage we were going to have. And for whatever reason, I'm really, really fixated on lots of storage in this build. I just felt like the first few times I took the truck out that everything was just a mess and unorganized, and so I've just been fixated on storage. And the door is real loosely mounted right now. We'll go ahead and pull this down. See, we have a set of those hidden hinges, and this is so I'm gonna slide this off of there. I don't have those screwed in at the moment. There's our door. You can see that's a fender cover. This is actually 2 pieces, and this covers up the fender, and it gave us a platform to build off of. That's where we have our hinges mounted to. Then all of this is framed out, and I'll pull this out real fast and show you. So these points are how we're going to mount this to the actual truck. And then this is just a false back cover to kind of cover everything up back there and seal it all up really good. And so today, what I need to do, get that out of the way. We're gonna remove all of this. I need to cover some of these holes with Dynamat, and I need to get all of our mounting points screwed and everything mocked up and ready for finishing work. So now that all of this is off of there, the plan for today is I'm going to put a few pieces of Dynamat to cover some of these holes up to keep noise and dust down. And then we're going to figure out exactly how we want to mount all this in a way that's removable. So in my mind, the way we're going to finish out this whole build is I'm going to get everything bolted down in its final position, but it's going to have to come back out so that we can do some Formica, some laminate, something on top of all of this wood. I don't want any of the plywood exposed in this. I want it to look a little bit more finished. And the Hummer being what it is, with the look that it is, I think it would be kind of weird to have just wood exposed back here. I love the way that the wood looks in the back of lots of people's camper trucks and camper vans. It has an awesome aesthetic and I really like it, but the Hummer is just a little bit more kind of tactical and aggressive feel, so I don't really want just the raw wood. I want it to be finished out this time, and so I haven't quite figured out exactly what we're going to put on here. But real quick, I'm going to get all that's cleaned up, we'll lay some Dynamat, and I'll start figuring out how to mount all of this in kind of a permanent fashion. So this is the way that I like to do my Dynamat. I like to use a little bit of alcohol to clean all of our surfaces. When it's colder, like it is here in November, I like to use a torch to heat up the metal and heat up the back of the Dynamat so it sticks nice and good. Then I like to use some sort of a roller whenever possible just to get everything on there really well. And so real quickly, we're just going to put a couple sheets of Dynamat on here and then we'll start mounting the panels. Before I get too much further, I do want to double check all of our fitment and everything. Dynamat seems like it's not very thick, but it can really throw stuff off, especially when we have the face of our drawer mounted exactly where it needs to be. And there is some adjustments and a little bit of adjustability overall, but I do want to make sure everything is going to be just right. I don't want to put any Dynamat behind those brackets, for example. And we'll go ahead and turn on our lights back here just for a little bit of extra light. Really not what they're made for, but I do not have our overhead ones hooked up quite yet, and so these are going to have to do for a little bit extra light in here. But you can see where our first piece of Dynamat is, and so I'm gonna put some more over all of this. I'm actually probably gonna mark where I want it to be. I'll probably end up covering this up. I'm not sure if I'm gonna end up using that actual faceplate that we built back there. I might just Dynamat all of this and carpet the back of it, and we'll just use that as our back. I'm not sure we actually need that rear fascia or not. We designed it originally to hide our brackets, but I'm not too concerned about that because we're gonna carpet this and the floor. So I could just throw a little bit of carpet or paint on those and that would look fine. Boom, so there we go. It's a little patchy. I had a lot of leftover Dynamat that I wanted to use, but you don't have to do every single square inch. It does not have to be perfect. The goal is just to get everything kind of covered, and it does make a really big difference on noise and insulation. And the H2 is not sealed so well, and so every single little hole that goes all the way around here that we can cover up helps mitigate the dust inside of this quite a bit, especially these back holes and on the rear hatch. The tail lights are not sealed very well, and the rear hatch is usually not sealed very well either, and so that makes a huge difference. And so if you have an H2 that gets a lot of dust inside of there, it's probably the tail lights not sealed very well, and so if you can Dynamat or cover some of these holes up or seal those tail lights in, it'll help a lot. But anyway, since we made the executive decision in this video to forego our little cover that we originally built and make this piece of the truck our back of the cabinet instead, it's now time to carpet all of that. And so we're going to use some industrial spray glue and some automotive carpet, and we're going to carpet this back panel. Now the carpet is thin enough that it should not affect our mounting points too much. I'm also going to hang a little bit over the edges just so there's a little bit of room for air and a little bit of room to trim. So real quickly, I'm gonna measure this. We're gonna cut some carpet and we're gonna spray glue it on there and throw it on there, and that piece of the cabinet will be done. So after looking it over, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and carpet from edge all the way to edge. Our brackets are here and here, However, the carpet is so thin that it should not make much of a difference from our mounting holes if we have to drill new ones when all of this is done. That's fine, it's not that big of a deal. We're also going to come up just slightly higher than the top of the cabinet, and we're going to come in just slightly lower so that you don't see any seams when you open and close that cabinet. So real quickly, we'll measure for the carpet. It just needs to be rough and a little overestimated. We'll trim it all once we have the main portions glued down. And if we come from top to bottom, we're looking at about 11 inches before that roll starts. We have another 3 inches or so to get to that 11, so we need about 14 inches high, plus another inch here, so let's say 15 to 16 tall. So let's write that down. Let's do 16 tall, and then we're gonna go from edge to edge here. And we need a little bit more to get back there, so we'll measure from that curve. And if we don't account for this curve right here, we're looking at about 37. Let's actually get that in there. We do account for that curve, looking at a little closer to 40, probably another inch or two in there. So let's say 41 inches. And then just because I'm crazy, I want to do everything 2 or 3 times. Let's do it one more time. So double check. Looking at 10.5 or 11 inches right there. So let's say 10. And then if we measure this way across, we're at 30 inches across, plus that 10 or 11, again, 41 inches. So that's right. So we're going to cut a square piece that is 16 tall and 41 wide. We'll set it up in there. We'll trim it a little bit if we need to, and then we'll glue it down. So that's going to work out really well. There's just enough extra on the top and the side for us to trim it or even tuck it after we're glued down. We can tuck it behind its lip right there. We have some room to tuck it in here. And like I said, it's so thin, it's going to compress. It's not going to make a difference on our bracket mounting points that much. If it does, we can always drill new holes. Even after it's glued down, we just set our drill bit to go in reverse, and we can put holes in the material without it getting tangled up. So it's not that big of a deal. So now I'm going to mask off our window and some of our sides. We're going to spray some glue on it. We're also going to spray some glue on the back of this. Once both of those are a little tacky, I'll work it in. We'll start at this really extreme curved edge. It's not going to be perfect, but this is the back of a cabinet in an off-road exploring vehicle. I'm trying really, really hard to not be the perfectionist that I was on the Lotus. If you were following along, you saw how many months it took me to get that interior right and perfect. This one, I'm trying to be a little less OCD about everything. If all goes well, all of its stuff should get destroyed at some point. That rear panel that I spent hours and hours and hours on should probably get cracked and beat up and dirty. All of that should get dirty, and so I'm trying really hard to not be such a perfectionist. That stuff needs to not be perfect, because if it is, I'm not going to want to get it out and ruin it. And so just bear with me if you see something you don't like, it's not perfect. Hey, I'm sorry. That is the purpose of this truck. That's why we bought one that was a little beat up and haggard. But anyway, let's get some glue on all of this, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, time for a little glue. This stuff is really awesome. I've used some of the spray glue that comes in a can, and a lot of that stuff's pretty good too, but it's hard to beat a big jug of industrial glue. But that 3M, not Super 33, but 3M makes a really good upholstery glue. They also make a great glue for laminate and stuff like that that comes in a spray can, and that's what we'll be using for the interior once we get to that point. All right, time to go put some glue down. So we'll start with our carpet first. Now you don't want to use too much. You don't want it soaking through to the other side of your carpet. So about that much is good for carpet. If you're doing suede and stuff like that, you might want to use even a little bit less. Maybe you even want to roll it on instead. But now we're going to spray the back of the truck.
20 minutes later.
So I just opened the garage door so we have a little bit more light in here. Had it closed earlier because it was such a hot spot that it was really making the video look bad, but it was just too dark in here for you to get a really good look. But there's our seamless, wrinkle-free carpeted back. Looks pretty good. It's not the best solution, but I think that's gonna work out really, really good. Like I said, I think we'll probably just paint these brackets and just leave them exposed. I don't see a problem with doing it that way. So now I'm gonna pull all of this out. We'll put our floor bracket in, set that's on top of it, bolt that down. Then we'll bolt this down. We'll make sure our holes line up, or we'll drill new holes. And then that side is effectively done and ready for finishing work. Okay, so I've been messing with getting that mounted and kind of installed for the last hour, and I have it in there really, really well. Originally, we were just using screws to hold everything in place. I went back, drilled those holes out. There's rib nuts holding the cabinet in now, so it's gonna make it really easy to take it in and out, because it's gonna have to come in and out a few more times before we're totally done. I'm gonna show you what we've done so far.
Gentlemen, behold!
So here is our cabinet. This, we have a whole bunch of storage room. This is really, really nice. So here's our brackets that we put rib nuts in. You can see that carpet laid down nice and smooth. The door opens and closes really well. We still have some finishing work to do on this, obviously. I need to get some chains to hold this kind of at a right angle, because this will double as a table whenever it's open. I also need to install a couple magnets to help hold it closed whenever you're going down the road. But we're getting really close to being at a finishing point for the cabinet. But we do need to do a few more things up above it. You can see that we have all of the body is exposed all the way around the window frame. And so my plan is to take some of the OEM plastics, trim and cut those to where we can install those to cover all of that up, give it kind of a factory look and feel up there. And then back here in the corner, that's where one of the OEM speakers was, and that's where we're gonna build a switch panel for all of our wires and things that run to the pod lights that are on the roof. So let's go take a look at our factory plastics and see what we can use. These are those rear speakers that I was saying we're gonna use. One of them is going to become a switch panel for all of those lights. I'm thinking we pop that speaker out. We cut a circle piece of acrylic to fit just right where that speaker grill is. Then we put our switches inside of there and even label them too. Here's our side paneling that I'm thinking we're gonna cut this about in a quarter. Use this top piece that originally ran up the C-pillar. We might have to trim some of these brackets flush back here. We'll take the passenger side over there. We'll give this a rough cut, set it up there and see if it's even close. I do think we're gonna have to cut some of these factory mounts out. We're probably gonna have to drill external fasteners and do rib nuts here, which is fine with me because that gives us something to mount to in the future if we wanted to build a shelf or something off of this. All right, so we'll take a loose measurement and see about how much of this factory C-pillar we need. Like about 13 inches of it, and the top piece does cover all of that, but here's that factory panel. So if we take 13 inches, that brings us pretty far down. I say we take about 16 inches, 17 inches, come down to about where this curve begins. We'll cut straight across that and see how that fits. And so quickly we need to pull this off. So like I said, we used rib nuts on here, and these are 1/4 rib nuts. Every rib nut on the truck is a 1/4. And I do already have marked the top of this on here, and I also marked its carpet because we need to trim it back. But with that, this is loose. Move it out of the way. We can see our line we need to trim on there, and we'll go ahead and do that while we're here. So let's double check this. Again, we're looking at right at about 13 inches, depending on where we measure that. So I think we're gonna cut down on this panel too. I think we'll cut down probably 16 inches, just a little bit lower, mount it and see if we can even hide some of that's behind the panel, depending on how closely that's kind of wraps around things. So like I said, we might have to break off these factory mounting tabs because it does hold it out. You can see, you know, this is how far it's gonna stick out. But we really needed to sit a little bit more flush against all of this, and so what might end up happening is we pull all of this off, we break these off, grind them flush, then set it up against this as flush as possible, maybe have a couple external fasteners holding it in place. But between doing that to cover this, and then we'll use the factory panel that goes there, I think this is gonna look really, really clean and not really hacked together once we're all said and done. Okay, so there's our OEM trim panel, that's C-pillar right here. And obviously this cut is going to have to be incredibly precise, but I think if we follow this edge next to the windshield, I think if we come all the way across and we cut it really, really precisely, that we can butt these up on top of one another, and this thing can, and the cabinet can kind of slide in underneath it. I think that's gonna be a pretty decent solution to hide all of this excess stuff. My other thought is, if I can't make any of this work for whatever reason, then the second solution, my plan B, would be to just carpet everything kind of like what we've done down here. Looks okay, it would not be the best solution, but I think that would be a good compromise. But I do think I'm gonna be able to make this work. So I'm gonna give this a few more cuts and then we'll go from there.
1 hour later.
So after a couple cuts, we have this on there pretty decent. It does not look bad. I'm not sure what to do about that section right here where it kind of hangs off, but it about matches up with it. So I'm thinking we probably just make a false piece of wood that comes up and butts up against that, kind of extends that out, brings it straight down. Maybe even we follow this curve down here with just a piece of wood, kind of fill in that whole area, smooth it out really nice. But that's not too bad. And so this piece right here is just gonna snap right into place, and then I'll have to modify the speaker panel just a little bit to get it ready to turn it into a switch panel, but I think that'll work out really, really well. It is kind of a tight fit right there, so we might have to trim the bottom of it, something like that. So I'm gonna mess with that here in a little bit. But I think that's everything for today. We made a lot of progress, and I'm pretty happy with the way that the cabinet has come out. Tonight, I'm gonna finish messing with those plastic OEM trim panels and get all of that fitted. And then tomorrow, we'll hop over to the sink side and start finishing out in about the same way that we finished everything out on the side today. I'm really excited to get it out and go explore some places I've never been before. There's so much to go and see, and this might not be the ideal vehicle for like a van life sort of thing, but I think it's pretty cool, and I think I'll be more than comfortable back there. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.